Finally, winter is here. And if you're not among the 17 million people who tuned in this weekend, I'm talking about the return of Game of Thrones. The first episode of the final season premiered on Sunday after a 2-long-year hiatus. 2 long years. I can't believe we're here now. And the theme was reunions. I'm Rachel Leah, and I'm here with Salon's Amanda Marcotte and Lauren Sarner from the New York Post to discuss what went down on Sunday and what's to come. So, there was Arya and Gendry, the Hound and Arya, Jon and Arya. All these reunions took place. That was really the theme of the show. Who were you most excited to see kind of link up again back in Winterfell?
I'm actually going to say Arya and the Hound, which I know is kind of a weird one because it's less of a big deal than Arya and Jon because he's not her family.
Right.
And it's less exciting than Gendry because Gendry had the whole flirty aspect.
Right.
But, I mean, season 3 is my personal favorite season because of the Jaime and Brienne storyline and the Arya and the Hound one. It was just 2 great buddy cop road trips. And Arya and the Hound were kind of the classic enemies to reluctant friends.
Right.
And even though this reunion was very short, it was, I mean, him calling her a cold little bitch was basically saying, I'm proud of you.
Right.
And so that was sweet. And I think he's kind of her teacher. Like, she's really learned a lot from him and really emulated his attitude. So in some regards, I was a little bit disappointed that she didn't seem that happy to see him.
Yeah.
I think a hug would have been out of character.
Right.
But maybe something a little more than what we got.
Yeah,
so
it was kind of cold.
It was.
I didn't know if she thought he was dead. I mean, you know, it was kind of the mix of she'd taken him off her list, right?
Yeah.
But then kind of left him for dead, or was that an act of mercy? Did she think that he was going to survive?
I think it's supposed to be ambiguous deliberately.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't think he was going to survive, but he wanted to die, and
Right.
she just kind of, like, I think there's, like, the thing with Arya is it's always a balance between mercy and justice, and those are the 2 things that are kind of always struggling in her, and that scene kind of encapsulated it when she left him to die. And so, of course she feels weird about seeing him alive because there's still no answer to how she should deal with him.
Right, right. And, you know, his redemptive arc is, you know, has some ups and downs to it. You know, it's not, you know, smooth by any means. My favorite reunion, or I don't know if reunion is the right word, but Jaime and Bran.
Yeah.
Like, that last scene just was so chilling to me. You know, Bran just was acting so weird the whole episode, waiting for his old friend, you know, and you just had no idea who really that was. And
Should have guessed, though.
yeah, I mean, for Jaime, the last second to come in kind of anonymously with his hood on, you know, and taking in the moment and to lock eyes with Bran, like, in the place where that first, you know, season 1, where he pushed him out the window, did something horrible and that, you know, paralyzed him for life.
Well, what's funny is, like, I think that kind of is going to poison the other reunion that didn't happen that everybody's been waiting for, which is Jaime and Brienne.
Right.
Like, he's going to see Brienne after his crime is exposed, and how is that going to change how she feels about him?
Right. Or even Daenerys, you know, like we saw in the preview for the next episode, her talking about growing up and thinking about what she would do, her and her brother would do if they ever saw the Kingslayer again. You know what I'm saying? And I think he was ready for that. Obviously, he's going to Winterfell. He knows what he's going for. But I think he absolutely did not expect to see Bran. And that, as you said with Brienne, that's a real threat to who has made, I think, real progress and evolution as a person, as a character, and finally broken from Cersei. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think can't wait to see how that's gonna play out.
But here's a question. Bran is so kind of weird now and so all about destiny and whatnot.
Right.
So I feel like he almost might thank Jaime because he'll be like, you know, it was a horrible act, but without it, I wouldn't be the 3-eyed raven. Or he might not even bring it up. Maybe he would bring it up to Jaime one-on-one.
Right.
But maybe he would not bring it up in front of, there's a photo of Jaime like in the Winterfell hall. We saw it in the trailer. Maybe Bran won't bring it up in that scene.
Yeah, it is a question if he even cares, you know, and knowing he knows everything that
Well,
that
he
Jaime has
doesn't
been
care, but everybody else is going to care quite a bit because it's like, who would do such a thing? And just try to imagine in your head, we see Jaime for what he is,
right.
but try to imagine explaining to these other characters, well, I pushed a small child out of a window, but I did it for Cersei.
Right, because we were committing incest.
Yeah, no, people are going to be like, that is the least good excuse of all time.
Right.
But you know what? If Jaime does a killer monologue out of it, I'm happy.
Yes.
Yeah. I know, you're the Jaime high over here. I mean, honestly, I'm kind of in it too. But interesting to think about Cersei too, right? You know, Jaime's kind of identity has been so linked to her, and his loyalty to her, his love to her. And, you know, him being in Winterfell obviously was symbolic of that break. And, you know, now she put out a hit on him. Like, you know, we know she wanted Tyrion dead, long dead. And so that was not surprising. But how cold-blooded to ask Bronn. You know what I'm saying? First it was Tyrion's BFF, and then now he's like, you know, boys with Jaime. And
I think that we've seen Bronn betray both of them over and over again for money. I don't think he's going to this time, because he doesn't actually ever really betray either Jaime or Tyrion. Like, Tyrion asked him to be his trial by combat fighter, and he says no, but that's not really a betrayal. That's like, I'm just not going to die for you.
Right, and it is facing the mountain. Like, I don't know if I could do that either.
No, Bronn couldn't beat the mountain. Like, nobody can beat the mountain.
Right.
Except the Hound, who will beat the mountain.
I agree with you, but with the introduction of a crossbow, I feel like it's like a storytelling thing where anytime we see a weapon on screen, it's going to be used.
Right.
Yeah.
So the question becomes, all right, what's Bronn going to do with that crossbow? Who is it going to be aimed at?
Right.
If it's not Jaime or Tyrion, could it be Cersei?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jaime kills Cersei. I think that everybody believes that is going to be the end of this. And they say, like, I think she says on the show, we came into this world together, we'll leave it together. So that's that. I mean, that's a prophecy, basically.
Right. Or even if it ends up getting used on Bronn himself, you know what I'm saying? I could see him going out soon.
And that's Joffrey's crossbow, right?
Yes, and I believe it's the same one that Tyrion used to kill Tywin on the toilet.
That's what I felt like. It was what that was representing.
It was, but I think it is also, because they made a big deal out of it many seasons ago that Joffrey had the new kind of crossbow.
Right.
I am a bit of a nerd, sorry.
So just speaking of Joffrey, speaking of Cersei, thinking about these blonde villains, I don't know if you guys saw Trump tweeting today about, he clearly does not understand Game of Thrones, but, using it as kind of the Mueller report, no obstruction, no collusion. So it's a sad day to be a Game of Thrones fan.
Yeah, but I think you can kind of pull out a little and enjoy the irony of it, because that's exactly the kind of move that Cersei Lannister would make and has made in the show. Like, she blew up the Sept of Baelor. Right. And then she was like, but it was a horrible accident. No collusion, no obstruction.
Right. Just overconfident, know? Like,
I mean, that's literally her argument. I didn't conspire and I didn't obstruct.
Right. So they're really like-minded then?
Yes.
So how
you could even make an incest joke, but I won't.
Yeah. Let's not go there. But I think it's interesting that, Game of Thrones is back and we're all wondering who will kind of sit on the Iron Throne again as kind of 2020 is ramping up, and we're all wondering who will, have that hand on the Bible come January 2021. So, but okay, not to spend too much time on Trump because we're talking about good things. Let's talk
just people murdering each other with dragons.
Incest,
Death for our favorites.
Right, exactly. Things that bring us joy. So let's talk about the evolution of Sansa, because this was a long time coming, but it was really powerful to hear Arya kind of, affirm her brilliance, her intelligence, her, savviness to survive this long. I think with Arya, it was more of an expectation. Of course, she's going to survive, but with Sansa, as Tyrion, and different characters at different points kind of like have affirmed this, that like you have survived, when most people did not. And people have counted you out and underestimated you your whole life. And, I feel like it's powerful to finally be like, no, let's like recognize this in Sansa, what I'm saying? Except for Jon, he's kind of the only one kind of on the outskirts still. But I think it's a little power dynamic thing going on.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that's really interesting and has been from the beginning of the show. Like, there's this kind of almost cliched way of doing a strong female character, which is like what Arya more traditionally is, which is like violent or like somehow a superhero type of character. And there's very rarely a sense that a feminine character can still be a strong character. Somebody who is traditionally feminine in the way that they dress and the way that they interact with the world. And yet the show is actually very subversively said from the beginning, like, no, Sansa's strength is real and her strength is not what we think of as strength.
Right, right.
And that's also why I kind of love that Arya gets the potential love interest while Sansa doesn't. Because I feel like both sisters have kind of been on opposite sides of the spectrum of traditional femininity.
Right.
And they began kind of sneering at each other's version of it, and they've kind of grown to appreciate each other's version for it and acknowledge that I could never have survived what you survived.
Right.
And so this episode kind of felt like the show explicitly acknowledging Sansa's journey might have been quieter because she's not literally stabbing people and having
Right.
moments of triumph, but it's no less powerful.
And I love how they played it out, coming from the last season, you know, with the
Yeah.
kind of tension with Peter Baelish, and you thought that he was successfully kind of pitting them against each other, and the okie doke was on him. You know what I'm saying? That scene with Baelish was so satisfying to watch.
I mean, that's like a truly feminist story.
Right.
Like men trying to pit women against each other to undermine both of them, and women say, "Nah, not today."
Right, right, for real. The other thing I thought was so kind of beautiful and interesting about the episode was how similar it was to literally the first episode of the show. You know, in so many different, in the dialogue, in the imagery, the first scene of this young boy running, you know, trying to climb trees and try to see Daenerys and Dothraki and her army coming in the same way Bran did for King Robert and, you know, his army coming to Winterfell. There were all these kind of, you know, references to what happened. And
Yeah,
kind of
they
a full
even
circle.
used when the army's marching into Winterfell, they even used Robert's procession music, like from that first episode. Like it was very deliberate in that way.
And it's just like people come in, and it kind of goes with the reunions thing well, right?
Yeah.
But so much has happened since that first season. It's been 8 years, 10 years for us. 8 years in the Game of Thrones realm.
But that's
Westeros.
kind of the classic getting the band back together storyline, right?
Yeah.
Like a movie like Ocean's 11 or even like the Blues Brothers, like uses the
Right.
same kind of tactic. It's like, well, we're all very different people, but we're going to get back together and we're going to somehow try to erase all this history to accomplish this goal.
Right.
And there still is quite a bit of pathos in it. Like, I've seen some people saying the episode seemed a bit oddly cheerful, but I feel like there's a lot of sadness beneath the surface.
Definitely.
Like, for example, Arya's reunion with Jon, it was very lovely to see, but when he asks her if she's ever had to use Needle,
Right.
that kind of is a funny moment because it's
Yeah.
dramatic irony that we as the audience, of course, knows that she uses it a lot.
Right.
But it's very sad because it's kind of hammering in, Jon does not know Arya at all anymore.
I mean, just his, you know, naivete, you know, is just like extraordinary in that moment.
Exactly.
I mean, what the world has went through, you know, like what everyone has had to do to survive at this point, you know.
And I think a lot of it too is also, I mean, it's still like a medieval fantasy setting, and all these people have been at war for so long that they understand what war is about, and so in a sense can forgive it in each other. I mean,
Right.
like Davos and Tyrion are friends now. Tyrion killed Davos' son in the Battle of the Blackwater.
Right.
Like,
Right.
but they have actually managed, but they're both warriors, they've both seen a lot, so they can kind of bizarrely let bygones be bygones.
Right, right. So we have to talk about Daenerys because, you know, I've been on her side for a long time. I mean, I can't lie. If someone comes in with dragons and walks out of fire, I'm gonna bend the knee. You know, like, it's just like, you know, she is extraordinary. Like, but she was very entitled in this episode. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's opening. You know, obviously the tension of her executing Samwell's brother and father. You know, in a moment where Tyrion and Varys were both like, this was the wrong choice. You know what I'm saying? And just, you know, even Bran having to be like, we don't have time for this politics, this power. Like, when the army of the dead is literally coming. Like, they've broken through the wall, they have your dragon. Like, but Daenerys is still on. Sansa needs to respect me. Sansa you know, like.
And she doesn't understand at all, like, earning respect. Or she
Right.
does, like, that's what's so sad. In the past, I think she has understood that you have to earn people's respect, and yet now she just walks in. She has a savior complex.
Right.
She's
she
like,
does.
and to be fair, if you walked into like a burning building and walked out and were just like, here's some dragons,
Right.
you would,
as
you
I
too.
said, yeah,
But, I
pretty
mean,
impressive.
It's like you contrast her and Jon, where Jon's died and been reborn. He's also kind of a savior like story, and he's reluctant. He doesn't want this.
Right.
But what's so strange is that Dany has been all about break the wheel, but she's pretty much just trying to maintain the wheel, because while everyone's like, all right, we need to band together against this existential threat, she's busy focusing on, the wheel basically of who should bow to me and who should respect me, which is kind of counter to what she has been in previous seasons.
I feel like she might have a sense of like, I feel like I'm so close. Like, I've been working on this for years.
Yeah.
I lost a dragon, I lost, High Garden, I lost, all these allies, and I'm so close. Like, she went to King's Landing, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't to sit on the throne. And so I don't know. I think she might be while she sees the White Walkers and she knows it's real and she knows like this is what needs to be done. I feel like she might be struggling with the fact that like I'm so close to the thing that I've like dreamt about my whole life, and this redemption of like my family and reclaiming this throne. But it's just like, as Bran said, we don't have time. I know you have a theory, and a lot of people now, after watching the first episode, that the battle between the living and the dead is coming a lot sooner than we thought.
Yeah, I think most people believe it'll be season 3 that.
Episode 3.
Yeah, or episode 3 that it's that Winterfell is attacked. I think it's pretty clearly.
It seems
I
like
think
that.
Next episode, I think, is going to end with that shot from the trailer of the White Walker horse hoof right outside Winterfell.
Oh,
yeah.
I think that's going to be the closing.
Yes.
So my question then is, I think then it doesn't necessarily mean that the war is over. It's very likely that they could lose the Battle of Winterfell. I mean, they've already seeded the idea that they might have to retreat to the Iron Islands. And frankly, I think like when you watch the new Game of Thrones, like this credit sequence at the top, it actually suggests that their final retreat position is behind the walls of King's Landing,
where Cersei is waiting with an army.
Yeah, because they make a point of showing you go through the wall, that they make sure that King's Landing has a wall and a gate just like Winterfell.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously all medieval cities do, but they drew attention to it.
Yeah.
It's also going to be interesting, like, what happens in the next episode now that Jon knows his true bloodline, and it's like, will he, as the Northerners are all, not trusting her from the jump, and Samwell's like, she's not fit to, and this is his, his most trusted
He has a good
ally.
reason to assert himself as the king right now.
Yeah,
he has a lot of good reasons to do it.
Right, but is that going to be...
she's also acting crazier and crazier.
Is that going to be a fraction for him? I don't even want to mention how he didn't quite blink at the incest problem here. That is a little disturbing, Jon. I'm not going to lie. But...
Also, Sam totally buried the lead when he delivered that news.
Right, he did.
When he first said, Lyanna is your mom, then didn't he have a split second of thinking, wait, so Ned screwed his sister? Like, he should have delivered the Rhaegar news first.
Right.
I think Jon figured it out right away, because who was Lyanna with when she died?
It's true.
Or who had she been with? I mean, if there's an obvious answer.
And he said, you've never been a bastard. They were married, whatever. Okay, so we have to, before we close out, give me your last minute predictions. You said you're going on record. The battle between the living and the dead is happening in episode 3. What else do we think is going to happen?
I think Arya's going to kill the Night King, not Jon, even though Jon has been the one to face him the most so far, so that would arguably make the most sense. Arya's storyline has revolved around death and this obsession with death.
Right.
So I think the most satisfying way for that to resolve is killing death. And she has that nice new weapon in this episode.
Right.
And the weapon has a projectile, which could work on a dragon, like the ice dragon that the Night King now has.
That is a very cool theory. I like it.
Yes.
My biggest one so far is I think that not only are we getting Clegane Bowl, but I wrote this at Salon.com, that I think that what's going to happen is that it's going to be not a trial by combat like a lot of people think, but it's going to actually be a single combat to determine a battle. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's literally how basically the Mountain and Sandor fight it out to see if they're going to let the survivors enter King's Landing or not.
Whoa. Ooh, I like that.
That would be cool. So I'm predicting it just because it would be cool.
Wow.
I like that.
I'm interested, the art installation that the Night King left with the Lord Umber boy. One of my sisters told me, she was like, that's the Targaryen sigil. It's the same thing. So I'm so interested to see how, is he coming for her? Like, what is that connection between the Army of the Dead and the Night King?
It's interesting because everybody believes that the Night King is a Stark, right?
Yeah, I've heard, at Salon, people believe that it's Bran,
No,
like
I'm
the
going to shoot that
actual
theory
man.
down.
Yeah.
The actual man that was turned into a Night King, I think was a Stark.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we saw him in season 6 briefly. He has like dirty blonde hair.
Yeah.
Which means it's not Bran.
Yes.
Sorry, I don't like that theory, so I'm just
Okay.
I don't think
you're
it's
killing
Bran.
it.
But I do think he obviously knew that a dragon was coming. He was just like, yep, there's my dragon. He's a greenseer. He can see somewhat into the future, I think.
Right.
So I think he knows who Daenerys is. He knows all about dragons.
Right.
He
He's
knows
obviously
something.
seen Jon plenty of times.
Yeah, so it might just be an actual threat, like I'm coming for you specifically, Dragon Lady.
Right. Well, we'll have to see. I know we'll definitely be tuning in every Sunday. Captions on, brightness up. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And yeah, we're out.